What's up, everybody? Hello, welcome to the Hustling Sideways podcast. I'm Alan Halas. I'm a music writer.
And I'm Jim Love, and I'm a keynote and motivational speaker. And, as we've just added, also a podcast host.
Yes, we keep
It
forgetting
took
to
us 2 years to say that, but that's
podcast
yes,
host.
and that's now in our resumes.
Oh, I'm updating LinkedIn as we speak.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just going to,
Do it. Yeah.
So, professional podcasters, we totally are.
Yeah,
We're
I like
killing
that you add
it.
a professional word to it, but it's good. We've grown immensely in the last 2 years, which is when we started this 2 years ago. That's wild.
A whole 49 episodes ago.
I know.
Because this is episode 49.
It is. We are almost at a half a century mark. We're very excited about it, but it is January 9th today.
Yes.
And Marquette basketball is back.
Yes.
It is so back. And
what if they lose this week? And
they're
not going
to.
now.
They're good to go.
Okay.
Yeah. So they just played Georgetown on Saturday, and they're back, and it is so fun to watch.
It was amazing that they won by 120 points.
It broke a record.
Just make a wild prediction, completely speculative.
Everything is in the world and life is so much better when that team is back, and I'm glad they are. And Shaka Smart, if you're listening, you should come on this podcast.
They broke 3 backboards when they kept dunking. It was just kept
was
breaking
a wild
the backboard.
Day. Yeah,
They murdered that kid on the other team.
he's now dead. He has a torn ACL and he's dead.
That poor kid. Thoughts and prayers. No, we have a great guest today as well.
Yes.
So I have been saying for months, we need to get a comic on here.
Oh, literally? Like, that's not even a lot. I would say since episode 20, Alan's been saying
a lot of times after, especially like the more LinkedIn businessy ones, I'm like, we got to mix it up.
He's saying it's the boring ones. That's
No, they weren't boring. I learned a lot.
Talk shit.
Let's go.
So today we have Raegan Niemela, who is a paralegal by day, and a stand-up comic as well.
Yes. Which is the classic sort of combination.
Yes, of course.
Typical, setuple. Yeah,
yes.
Makes sense.
So welcome to the show.
Yes. That's totally normal.
Welcome to the podcast. How are you doing today? Oh,
applause button.
We have no applause button. We could add those in post, and we never.
But
do.
we don't because it's our shtick, and it adds to the ambiance of the podcast. Yeah. We're
Also-
very organic. That's just
Also,
how we are.
over-explaining it is part of the ambiance.
Yes, if you haven't caught on.
You guys would be excellent at telling jokes.
1,000%.
Famous last words, but I will take the compliments. That's great.
Raegan, how are you doing today?
I'm great. I work my
awesome.
full job as a paralegal, and now I get to talk about comedy, so it's a good day.
Hell yeah! No, we're
Good.
gonna focus today on just the paralegal part.
Today is more LinkedIn business.
Really
stuff.
gonna dive in.
Please,
No,
no.
Topo Chico in hand. We're good to go. We're
I
set.
did not get this signed off by HR.
Yeah. So Raegan and I met conveniently at a bar. Just randomly.
The best place.
You know, I could have found a comic anywhere. And I said, you know what if I just kept going to the same bar that I always go to?
Yeah.
And now that's where I happened to run into Raegan, started talking about, doing comedy and all sorts of things like that. You run an open mic as well.
Yes.
And then now all of a sudden, she's here.
So was Alan the guy that was like, "Yo, I do a podcast"? Like, is that how he
That's
introed
every
himself?
guy.
Yeah,
You
good.
guys
I just
are
want to make sure
we're like, we're professional podcasters.
Yeah,
now. That's
we-
implied if you say
we do
you're
podcasts, bro. That's
you're
what-
a dude.
We have the nicest setup of all the people that think
That's
that
right.
they're
You're damn right.
podcasts.
Actually, that part's true.
And
Yeah.
I'm a hypocrite because I've also had a podcast before.
So there we go.
Yours is already more
We
fun
have
than
a
mine.
former podcaster on our hands.
Yeah,
Good.
bad
good.
podcast.
Anyway, you're gonna ask a question. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, so give us a little bit about your background, where you grew up, and kind of how you got into the more interesting side of things, the podcast.
You can touch on being a paralegal for a moment, and
the
then we'll transition into it.
I guess I originally from Upper Michigan. I lived there for most of my childhood. I ended up graduating high school in Wisconsin though, like near Green Bay.
Okay.
And then I went to school in Madison. And when I was like growing up, my dad, like all conservative fathers in the Northwoods, was super into the Blue Collar Comedy Tour.
Oh my gosh,
If you guys remember,
that hits close to my heart. Yes, Foxworthy. Oh my
Bill
gosh, Ron
Engvall,
White.
Larry
Yeah.
the Cable Guy, Ron White. So
Oh, that
and
is so
Ron
classic.
White-
That's hilarious. Yeah.
Ron White was my hero when I was a kid.
Okay.
I was a very strange small girl, and I looked at Ron White with like a cigar and a glass of whiskey, and I was like, "That's gonna be me." And my dad was
I
like,
love
"Please
it.
no."
And then she was kicked out of kindergarten.
I was gonna say the first sign of trouble was we
Yes.
found it. Good to know.
Nope, that was the start. But yeah, then when I went to school in Madison, one of the beautiful things about that town is the Comedy on State Comedy Club.
Oh yeah.
So they have a $2. At least it was when I went to school. There was a $2 open mic night for college kids. You only paid $2, and then I think you're supposed to buy a couple drinks or something. Which a lot of the time when I went there, I wasn't even 21, so I was just like buying Diet Cokes or whatever.
Awesome.
But yeah, so I would go to that for like 5 years. I went on a pretty regular basis and kind of met friends and whatever. But then I didn't start comedy until I moved to Milwaukee.
Oh, so you were going there just to like listen and
just to watch.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I didn't start comedy till I moved away. I think like I was just going to watch and I wanted to do it. But like I think it's easier to start doing stand up when you're anonymous. Yeah.
Okay.
So you don't have that pressure. Of,
Yeah.
Like a lot of new comedians will like do their first open mic and they'll bring like friends and family, and I never. To this day, I'm like, I don't want you to watch me.
Right.
That's interesting. Yeah, I get like you would assume. I mean, you assume you would even get like pity laughs or something from that, but it's probably more fun to be anonymous too. I would imagine
it's more fun to be anonymous, and I think it's more honest because you don't have those pity laughs. And I mean, it's natural for everybody to bring friends and family at some point, right? But like, I think when you're starting out, you shouldn't rely on that too much.
Yeah. Right. So were you like, did you see people just like bomb the hell out of what they were doing at open mic nights? Or was it a lot of really good
I
folks?
bombed I still bomb my ass off at open mic nights quite frequently. But yeah, I watched a lot of bombing, which does make you more prepared for it. Watching other people do it, you realize that it's a very commonplace thing. It's just part of what you have to do to get good. Yeah.
I want to back up a little bit to that first like inkling of when you were like, okay, I know I'm funny. I'm going to go up on stage and tell jokes. When did you really first feel like funny? Because that's a big thing. Obviously, the confidence is a huge step of it.
I don't know if I like had a moment where I felt like I'm funny. I feel like it was a moment where it was more, this sounds like so like, it wasn't that I thought I was funny. It was that I wanted to make people laugh. No, but genuinely, like I didn't know if I was or not.
Which yearbook did you sign with that? That's great.
I didn't think I knew if I was funny, but I think I knew I had like an insane amount of respect for the people I'd watched for years. It's kind of crazy because like going to school and watching that open mic night versus when I started, I now do shows with a lot of people that I used to watch for like years, which sounds so creepy, but like there was a lot of respect that I had from like observation
for sure
from that, and I think I just wanted to I wanted to be like that. It was just something where I was like I want to be that way, and then just having a respect for the art form in general and like what it does for people in society. It's
I think I'm glad you said art form because
society. I sound like I'm so fucking smart. Like,
I have no society there is to be.
I just wrote a new bit about smoking cigarettes. Like I'm not contributing anything to the world.
Like, but there is an art to that. Like a lot of people just think they could just go up and like tell jokes and like it's gonna be like, but like you really like I one time watched a video of I think it was Louis C.K., which now has not aged gracefully, but of him just
Louis.
constructing a joke. Right, I guess he's back, but like him doing like a 30-second joke and every word was specific. And it was like that's art and like that's hard. You know what I mean? And I know like obviously you're not Louis C.K., but like you do like these and you write
that's
them
what you're shooting
and they're
for.
specific and like is it hard to write a joke like that? Like how much time does it take you to like from creation to actually delivering typically for like a joke or a story?
Like for me to feel like a joke is complete probably takes like months and it's like repetition where I'll finally be like, this is as done as I'm gonna do it for now, and I'll maybe walk away from it. But I also say that, and one of the bits I wrote in my first year of comedy I stopped doing for 3 years and is now back in one of my main jokes that I'm doing, and I changed it all. So like honestly, there's no that it all kind of like evolves over time. But no, like especially because I it's great that you bring up Louis C.K. actually, which is weird to say as a female comedian, but he was like somebody I watched early,
right.
But obviously before the whole Me Too thing. I mean, I still listen to his specials. You gotta know,
you gotta know what the bull. I mean, he's still funny, but yes.
Oh, he is. Right. He is. You gotta know what the enemy's up to, dude. Yeah, you gotta keep your eye on the boys because they're kind of hold all the keys in the kingdom of comedies. You gotta know what they're up to. But he is a very efficient writer, and I am not. So I learned from him a lot about like how to be still even. And there's a lot of different people who are very efficient and technical like that. Like I'm trying to think of like who else would I would say in a more loose way, like a Kurt Metzger is that. Gary Goldman's probably the most like
dialed in. Everything is precise to
very
this word is going to be the word that gets you, or like
Yeah.
this rhythm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Which is another Metzger. Metzger goes with that too. He's got like this rhythm, a cadence, like a very observable cadence to his jokes. But yeah, I think I forgot the original question.
I did too, but that's okay. I like where you're going with it, because
Yeah.
like, so when it's when do you decide a joke is done? Like, is there a moment when you're like, okay, like I've tested this, maybe like do you test it on people and then you're like, let's see how they react, or like how does that process work? I don't think a lot of people know that. Like, that's a long time.
Well, and everybody does it different too. But for me personally, like, because I know people who only write on stage, so they never write a word down, and they just. Ton Johnson's like a local comedian here who's
Oh my gosh, that's
unbelievable. Yeah, and I don't think I've ever seen him write anything down on paper. I don't think I've seen him with a notebook. Whereas most of us are like walking around with like this raggedy ass notebook.
Like borderline improv to like be up there and you're just testing it out. Like, oh my gosh,
I can't even hold a concept in my brain. When I'm writing it down, let alone just doing it at once. But yeah. So for me, I usually write for a couple hours on the weekend, and then you ideally you hit multiple mics a week if you can, and then hopefully you also have a show that week. So after you've like done it at a couple different mics, you can try to bring like your first iteration of it to a show. And then it gets to a point where you don't, at least for me, I stop working on it at the mic, but I'll still work on it at the shows. So I know like this iteration of it is passable enough where I feel fine telling the joke when I'm getting paid to do comedy.
Right.
But then I'll still kind of fuck with it for a while. And you don't ever really stop tweaking things, or every once in a while something will happen in a room that's a surprise and you're like, oh, that should stay there all the time. Like that belongs there. That'll just happen very spontaneously without you even realizing that it's going to happen. But yeah, everybody does write differently in the process, and I don't think that there's ever a point where although I'll say my friend AJ, who just is about to release an album, he is trying to like retire all of his jokes and just start writing new shit. So you could do it as a choice, but like I think when I think of material, I don't think anything I've ever written is good enough to consider done. Like in my opinion, I would not give it that grace.
Yeah, you want to get better each time. That makes sense.
Yeah.
For memorizing jokes, do you memorize to like the rhythm that, like, I guess my reference point would be music, like a set list. Do you memorize like, okay, this joke is gonna come in here, and then I'm gonna come do this bit, and like have that kind of like a set list, I guess, of your stuff?
Yes. Yeah. So in terms of like memorizing, I have to handwrite word for word, which not everybody does, but I'm a word for word person because I'm stupid and I drink a lot. So
we have a lot in common on this podcast.
For straight memory reasons, we handwrite it a couple times. But eventually then when you're just like, once you know what you're doing with it and it's in your brain, you're not going to like skip a tag or like forget a piece of the premise that's like vital.
Right.
Then at that point, I do just like, if you look in my notebook, there's like pages where you can tell I'm like trying to write a new joke and it's like chunks of paragraphs. And then they'll just be like random words. Like one of my like go-to set lists is like, it's like what I call my jokes.
Yeah.
So it's just like cousin or not, black sheep, hyphenated baby. Like it makes no sense to anybody who would be looking at it, but it's just
you're like, those are
the bits. And it's just boop, boop, boop. And every comic's got that.
My worry would too be in the setup, not in the punchline, like missing, like you said, like an important part of the premise. Like, and that's just from storytelling in general. That's my biggest thing, that I watch a lot of comedy, but I know like the thing that baffles me is that they can remember an hour. Or remember, in the case of a special. Or that you can remember like, okay, I know this joke flows into this joke, into this joke. And I'm assuming repetition helps with that. But when you're doing something like an open mic too, you also are probably playing playing to the same people a lot. That you want to vary it up a little bit, right?
Yeah. And I think actually with memorization, it helps if you don't tell your bits the same way all the time. If you try to force yourself, because I definitely have a go-to, especially like when I do like rural shows, especially when I was not as confident as a comedian when I was younger in it. I would always start with material about Upper Michigan, and now I'm really trying to move away from that. But like in rural rooms, I don't want to say that rural people aren't open to female comedians, because they are, but I think it's it was more important for me in those rooms to make an immediate connection. And by saying I'm from Upper Michigan, we immediately identify with each other, so like they understand I'm like one of you. Like I've lived in a way more rural place than where you live right now.
Right.
So like we've got common ground. So like let's just like get over like that nervousness about some gal from the big city coming here and telling us her liberal. She's gonna talk about her vagina.
Well, it's funny with like the repetition. Like, so as you know, I'm a motivational speaker, and like I've spoken for 10 years, and I still use note cards because I know like I have really bad ADD, and if I go off on something where I'm like really passionate about it, I have to come back and be like, oh, here's the next part. Now let's transition, and then like when I practice, it's practicing like timing or voice inflection and like where do I want to raise my voice, take the microphone. So it's all very much like a science almost in a sense. And you like know how the audience is going to react, or you think you do. In the part when they don't. Like it's a mind game. I mean it's really wild. And I know like I do it to motivate, you do it to make people laugh, and it's I get it. Like
same
it makes
strategy
sense.
though. Right, exactly. Yeah.
Now I'm curious, hecklers. Like have you like I'm because I am fascinated by how comedians handle hecklers, and like do you like how do you do that? And then do you have like an example of where like someone either really pissed you off or like where you really owned a heckler and was like, that was awesome? Like
I feel like, what's wild is like I think I've only gotten a handful of mean heckles in my entire I've been doing it for 5 years, which is not very long. But longer than many, especially now that we've got like the pandemic babies. Like a million new people came out after COVID. So it's a little bit longer than some locally here anyways. But I think, I don't think I've ever had a super mean one that like stuck with me. I think I used to just like move on when you first start. But at this point now, like usually if I'm getting a heckle, one, I do a lot of crowd work. So I'm kind of welcoming like interaction, and I do that a bit early on in my sets to establish dominance.
Let's go.
But just to let them know, like
Alpha.
I'm not comfortable with this, like, and I plan on having a response to you, and they feel like I think more at ease, and like they don't need to like challenge me; they can trust me.
That's a good point. Yeah.
But I think, honestly, like the only heckle that's coming to mind was just at a show recently. I was at Comedy on State, and it was for a weekend with Jackie Cation, who is one of my ultimate all-time favorite comedians. So unbelievable. And she's from Milwaukee, which is so cool. There was a woman who just after every joke I was like, that is so funny.
Oh, gosh.
And I had to keep
verbalizing the laughter like that. Yeah, that sucks.
She was right in the front row, and I was like, I know, right? I was like, thank you. Yeah. I was like, I get paid to do this.
She was just there to pump you up the whole time.
Just in case you didn't know. I know people that do that. Like, that's hilarious. Well, then laugh. You know, like, it's such a weird way to say it.
It was the most polite heckle ever. I do have to do a shout out to my friend Natalie, though, who had the sickest put down of a woman last night at a late show at Promises. And the woman was not trying to be, like, she wasn't trying to disrupt, but she did. And then Natalie just murdered her. She was like 35, and somebody was talking about bisexuals, and she said, she basically was like, all these kids are gay now, or something like that. She was like, I crawled so they could run, or something. And she like fucked up the metaphor too, I think. It wasn't like totally right. And Natalie just went up there and she was like, bitch, my uncle's gay in his 60s. And she just like roasted her so bad. She started crying and left.
Oh no.
No way. Oh my gosh.
But like
that's awesome.
She kind of didn't stop, so it was kind of on her. I didn't feel that.
Give me a break if you can't handle it.
Natalie Wickman, you
shout out to you, Natalie.
did so great last night. That's great. Actually, everybody.
If you get someone like that to cry and leave, I mean, that's just brilliant. That's awesome.
The thing is, if you're gonna heckle, I'm not. My problem isn't with a heckler who tries it and then understands that. Like, they can take it back. Mm-hmm. It's like when you heckle and then you kind of lose it, where it's like, maybe it was fun to throw in a little bit of randomness, a little bit of... and we don't want that, right? Because we're there to do something. We literally have a job we're getting paid to do. So it's not like I want to invite heckling. But I have less hate towards a heckler who can take it when it gets dished back to them because you asked for it.
Right.
That was the whole thing.
So many times they want to just take over the show and make it about them. And it's like... It's a weird thing where, like, you're up there telling jokes, but they think now that's their invitation to be funny too.
Yeah.
Like that would be like for me, like going to a concert and seeing a guy like bust out a guitar.
Yeah.
And being like,
Seriously, that's
Yeah.
exactly.
you know what I mean?
It's like
And
an
be
environment
I
of
can
comedy, all
do
of a
this
sudden
what
they're part
you're
of that.
doing.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's kind of what it kind
Particularly
of
during like the quiet moments, you know, like I've been to shows and you know, they take a sip of water and someone's like, F it, and it's like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, you know,
Yeah.
like I can't. It drives me bananas. And I mean, when comics do a great job with it, I actually YouTube this all the time, like
Oh, yeah.
comics like shutting down hecklers, because I think it's like the funniest, because it would terrify me to
Yeah.
like have that moment happen, but then like some of y'all just take it in stride. I'm like, that is like, I envy that confidence. Like that's what I want to have. You know, it's awesome.
No, it is. Like, I think it's a weird age we're living into as comedians right now, because TikTok and Instagram Reels have completely changed comedy.
yeah.
Like, now it doesn't really matter. It's weird. Like, I know comedians who are incredible, like, and should be getting opportunities they're not getting. And then I've seen people who have like a following on Instagram or on TikTok that are like getting booked to do insane shit. And it's
Yeah.
because like that's, if you have a certain number of followers, a club,
That's all it takes.
sees that.
they know those are tickets. Those are guaranteed ticket sales versus,
Right.
you know, I think I got like 1,300 followers maybe on maybe like at
Right.
best. And like, you know, that's not a pull for anybody. But so having followers is important, but then what comes from that is you have to constantly be posting material, and
Right.
you don't want to post your jokes because then everybody's going to know what you're about to say. So as a result, comedians have been posting heckles and crowd work, which make people think that this is a normal part of comedy shows.
Oh yeah.
So it's like this algorithm situation has like encouraged this like kind of crowd
imagine.
behavior. It's
I've seen more heckle put downs than like
actual bits on Instagram
Yeah.
or TikTok.
and which I get because like you don't want to give the game away for free. You know
Exactly.
what I mean? Like
yeah, I refuse to post my bits online.
I don't
okay,
blame
I
you.
was gonna
Yeah,
ask
like,
if that's
do
like a thing where you're like, does that make you write more to be like, okay,
Mm.
this one can go, and like, okay, if something gets filmed or you know it's being filmed or whatever, you can be like, all right, I can do this one.
Yeah.
Let this one like kind of burn off, but then like, it sounds like that it is giving away too much almost.
Yeah, I don't want to post my bits. I'm adamant. I'm like, against that. And
Mm-hmm.
also right now, like I'm not really at a place where like, well, that's what I'm trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. I think what I'm trying to do right now is just more like get technical and like good at my writing and
Mm-hmm. Right.
in my voice on stage. And so I'm not like really, I don't know. I know it would help me get more opportunities and I'd be able to travel more and I would be able to kind of break out of the Midwest even.
Right.
But I'm starting to do that without ever having to post any of that TikTok shit or Instagram
Yeah.
Reels.
Yeah.
And so and I would rather not go that route until I feel like, oh, like I'm a headliner. Like and you know, I occasionally will headline a local show here or there, but like I want to start doing that when I'm like, I now want to be like headlining
person,
clubs,
right.
like smaller clubs, little indie shits, like little
Yeah.
theater, black box theaters and stuff like that. Right now I'm just kind of focused on improving and getting good.
Yeah.
Right.
And then when I want to market myself, I don't want to market this version of myself as a comedian right now.
Right.
I don't like it enough.
You're building it.
Sense, yeah.
yeah.
You mentioned something about like playing rural shows versus playing, you know, in the city or whatever.
Sure, yeah.
How much time you really get to read the room on a normal night? But you know, like
Mm.
before you're going up, like are you able to kind of like look at the crowd and be like, okay, I can do this or I can do this bit or whatever? Like do you analyze that ahead of time or you just kind of
Yes.
like let it? Yeah.
Oh yeah, when you walk into a room, yeah, it's well, unless you're hosting, in which case
It's
fucked.
anything.
Yeah, you're just fucked. Yeah,
Whoops.
hosting. I'm like really happy to now be in a place where outside of like comedy clubs, I'm hosting a lot at comedy clubs still, but in like local rooms, I'm featuring and headlining now, so I don't have to. I don't have to like worry so much about the temp of the room, the temperature, and like what people are up to. And I don't have to worry about going up to a cold room,
Yeah.
which is a huge privilege.
Yeah.
Yeah, because hosting, you just go up cold, and even if you murder as a host, you're gonna look like the least funny.
Right,
in the
because you're
lineup.
only there for 30 seconds or a minute or whatever.
You're the fluffer. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're there for, you can host for like 10 minutes for sure.
Okay.
But it's just, you won't ever, you'll never get the kind of momentum you would have gotten if somebody had gone before you. Your
Totally.
job as a host
Yeah.
is to just build the room. I don't. Do you have like a fluffer as a motivational
Yeah,
speaker?
you know, it's a good question. I have like
I don't know if that would be the term.
Yeah, right? No, we call it fluffer. No, I have like usually someone who's like at least introing me or doing something where like they're building it up a bit. I mean, I'm certainly not like someone that would like go before me and do their own thing, but like someone who I usually know and like is able to be like, and this dude can, you know, like has it, you know, whatever it is. And like, I write an intro type of thing, but after that, like I just go in and like turn up. I'm like, you know, and then cause that's like my thing is like, I'm way too energetic. I mean, you've seen me speak before, like, and I go out and I just go nuts and like, but then they're clued in. They're like, all right, this is it, you know, so it's you know, it's like, and then I get into like an actual message, but the first 5 minutes is me doing chants, me running around, me sweating.
Yeah.
But then they're like, all right, like this guy could actually be a good time, you know. So it's I can imagine like, yeah, like or like an opener that like bombs, like is it weird to go out and like the first person kind of sucked, and I mean maybe not their fault, but like you're like, all right, well here we go. I guess we'll just see what happens.
Sometimes like that doesn't hurt necessarily.
Yeah.
Like it's not great. You want everybody to do well. But I will say like I've had people go in front of me who've bombed and the audience is just kind of like, great, somebody new. Like, it's like a reset button.
Yeah. Do you find the world of comedians is supportive of each other, or is it like really competitive? Or?
It's way supportive.
I kind of figured that was the case.
I would say it's probably, especially like I don't know a ton about. I know you are tuned into local music. I don't know a ton about it, but I have a few friends in bands, and when I talk about it with them, they're not like really helping each other get spots and swapping venues.
It's a lot of like, hey, we're throwing a show, let's get our buddies band.
Yeah.
And then like, you know, unless there's somebody like a breaking and entering that comes along that is like, let's get these guys and these guys and these guys together. You know, most of the time, if it's like just throwing a local show, they're just like, all right, we're going to go play with our friends' bands because we know that they're good and we like, you know, give them. But that's about it.
Yeah.
That's not the extent of like, you're saying we're like, oh, you played here, let me get you into this place.
Yes, we're absolutely trying to connect people with bookers, and like, not only that, but like many of us run our own shows, book each other, and then in addition to that, you know, many of us write together. Like we write bits and ask each other, like, what did you think of that? Why is that ever gonna work? Is there anything there? Or am I totally grasping at straws? Yeah, I would say overall it's very, very supportive. Of course, like any small creative community, there's drama, but
Imagine. Yeah, right.
But it's overall just all of my friends in Milwaukee, because I moved here in 2017, and about a month after I moved here, I did my first open mic. So almost every friend I have in Milwaukee is a comedian. It's just my entire community in the city.
Are there a lot? Like
there's a good amount of us. Yeah.
Do you have a lot of friends? I guess is what I'm asking.
Right.
I hope so. Yeah, I consider them.
That's great.
But yeah, there's a good. I would say there's probably like anywhere from, you could say like 25 to 30 like working comedians in the city.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, I need to get more connected.
I would say we got to go see a comedy show.
Comedy's my favorite thing in the world. I mean, I think it's what makes the world go around. That would be awesome. And like what? So are you like at just like local venues? Does it happen often around? Like, how often do you perform?
That does vary a bit with like booking. So like how often I'm getting. So like honestly, this is kind of a slow month. In November and December, there was 4 weeks where I had a minimum of 3 shows. Most weeks I had 4 shows.
Oh my God.
And then I also run an open mic every Monday. So that was kind of fucking nuts.
Yeah. That's a lot.
That was a lot, yeah.
Just kind of. Yeah.
Just kind of. I'm a little burned out, to be honest. I'm not hating that January's slow, but But yeah, like this week I have 1 show. Next week I'll have 5 because I'm gonna do a club next week. I'm at the Improv.
Oh, nice.
Hosting for Steph Tolev, who is a fucking badass comedian, and I'm so stoked. It's gonna be great. But like that's like probably the most you'd ever do in a week is 5. I mean, people have done more, but like that is a busy week,
especially
just, like, a full weekend.
here. I mean, I did. Yeah. Until I started talking to you, I had no idea that there was a Monday open mic at Bremen that was a comedy one. Like, that's the thing I think is, like, there's not that many stages that do comedy open mics. Right. You know what I mean? There's definitely not a lot of music ones. Yeah. So, like, trying to find, you know, is it hard to find rooms to play?
I think it's pretty easy in Milwaukee. The city you're in matters. Here, if you just want to get on an open mic, there's an open mic Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. You can get on an open mic. Yeah. And I think there's a couple different Sunday ones. I know I can't remember which bar it's at right now, but there's like a queer LGBT all-inclusive mic in Walker's Point on the last Sunday of every month. And then I think there's one in rounding third out in West Dallas on Sundays as well. And there's like multiple mics. Like on Tuesdays, on Wednesdays there can be 2 mics. If like last night there was the Laughing Tap open mic, that's every Wednesday at 8 o'clock, and then afterward every other week is a showcase at Promises, followed by a late night mic.
Oh wow!
On my Mondays you can go to Bremen, and then at 10 o'clock you can go to High Dive, and there's another open mic.
So even in the same neighborhood.
In the same neighborhood, same night. Honestly, late night mics, hit or miss.
Yeah, right,
10 p.m.
right.
People are usually drunk
That's
or
case.
tired.
Yeah.
But it's nice to be able to go up and run the same thing twice in one night. That's like incredibly. That's what Chicago has over Milwaukee. In my opinion, it's the only thing Chicago has over Milwaukee.
Nice.
Yeah, a little Chicago shade.
Yeah,
I mean, I love.
I was like,
love that comment.
he's from Chicago.
I live here for a reason. Yeah.
Okay,
yeah. So I appreciate that comment. That's great.
And don't get me wrong, Chicago's amazing. Like, there's so many phenomenal comedians there that I love. But like, it's incredibly expensive. And if you're doing comedy, it's usually because you're a broke piece of shit who wandered into an open mic anyhow. So it's not like you got cash to burn. Totally. You're either that or you're like a trust fund baby whose parents are bankrolling
I'm just
them
gonna
through
do comedy. Yeah, exactly.
See how this works.
Yeah, they don't even. That's comedy's their job barely, and they're like booked once a week. Like,
oh my God.
They're ridiculous.
That's so funny.
But I think in Chicago, it like that's the real beauty of that city is you can hit like I don't even know how many mics in one night and just run the same thing over and over and work it out and work it out and work it out. Can't do that quite as much in Milwaukee.
Yeah.
But you make more money doing shows in Milwaukee. I get paid way more for most of my shows here in Milwaukee than Chicago comedians do.
Wow.
That's shocking.
Especially like a show in Milwaukee, like an in-city show, I would make more money than an in downtown Chicago show outside of a club, most likely.
That's insane.
I probably get I drive down to Chicago for like $20 shows, which like covers my gas.
Yeah.
I mean,
right.
And then
that's basically you're paying for exposure.
Yeah.
To play, which is that's a music term. That's for
No,
that's how you know you have a bad
right,
booker
right,
is when they're like,
yeah.
the exposure is great.
Bookers do that for comedy as well. They're like exposure and 2 drink tickets, baby. Let's go.
Yeah.
It's like no, I'm not driving to Beloit for 2 high lives.
Right.
I have to ask.
Yeah.
What's the most offensive joke you've ever written?
Oh,
Oh wow. Okay, just
I'm
rip
going
that
for
band
it. I love.
it's bad.
Yeah. I gotta hear it. Did you perform this one, or was it like okay?
I still do it sometimes. I actually did it a few months ago because and I was not at my top notch that night. I won't lie. I was not performing my best.
Fair
Right.
enough. Yeah.
But this audience was miserable, sexless suburbanites who deserved what they had coming to them. So they were just giving me nothing, and so I decided to end with my abortion joke.
Fire it up.
Okay.
It's go ahead. Go ahead.
All right.
Yeah.
My cousin, I like to call her the perfect storm because she's young, dumb, and religious. Appleton hates this. I did this in Appleton, and I knew they hated it. They hate it because she's young, dumb, and religious. She was saying to me, Raegan, I'm pregnant, and it was from the scummiest guy in our small town. And like whatever your version of a scumbag is in Upper Michigan, it's 10 times worse, right? And so I looked at her. I was like, "Well, okay. You have options. I wrote this before Roe v. Wade got repealed as well.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, but,
Important. Yes.
You got options." And she was like, "Well, Raegan, I don't think I want to do that because if God didn't want me to have this baby, why would He bring that man into my life?" And I looked at her and I said, "It's fair if you feel that way, but I have to say that's terrible logic because you could just as easily say if God wanted you to have that baby, why do you have so many coat hangers in your closet?"
Oh Jesus.
It's a logic joke. It's barely an abortion joke.
Good.
Yes.
It's good. It's good.
Are people like hanging on every word when you bring something like I could imagine they're like, oh, she's going this route. And that's got to build you up a little bit, like for something like that. Like,
well, and I'm
just gonna
about to
dive in.
shit on an audience that really was not cooperating. It did feel good. It did. I think I flipped them. No, I didn't. I'm just kidding.
Right.
I was like,
On the way out.
Because some of it, like if you're like pissed off at a crowd, some of it's got to be a little bit petty. Like I'm about to turn up on these people and like really get get down and dirty with them a bit.
It's rare that happens, because usually if I don't do well, it is my fault. And honestly, like in almost every audience, I am adamant that there is an avenue to success.
Yeah.
However, there's some comedians who say you could murder in any room, and that's like their philosophy.
Right.
I think you can murder in almost any room if you find that avenue. But these people were just really not, like, I was
Just
trying.
not feeling it.
I was throwing everything at the wall. They just hated everything. They hated everything I did.
That's just a shitty crowd. I mean, that's just
shitty crowd.
they suck. You know, I mean, and they deserved every ounce of whatever offensiveness that they felt from that.
It was a bad show. It was a bad show.
It's hilarious. I had to ask. It's so funny.
Not out of that vein, like, and not out of the vein of what we just did here. Do you get people that are like, well, you're a comedian? Like, I know Hannibal Buress does a bit about this, where he's like, well, they're like, oh, just do some comedy for us, like in this bar for free, for whatever.
Yeah.
Do you get people that are just like, hey, like, can you just tell some jokes? Like, if you're like hanging out or you're in public and they know you're a comedian, so they just know, like.
Yeah, the worst offenders are, and I hate to do this, but the people I work with, they know I do comedy,
sure. Yeah.
and I know it's asked out of genuine interest in what I'm doing. They're being polite and they're being friendly when they ask, but I just don't think they understand like that. What just happened right there? That's about as good as telling a joke out of a comedy setting will ever do. It's never going to be as good as you think it's going to be off stage.
Yeah,
right.
You're never going to like it as much.
Yeah,
So I just refuse to do it. And also, like, a lot of my jokes I don't feel comfortable talking about in a work setting. So
I was gonna say, when you brought the coat hanger out in the paralegal office, that was probably a bad one.
I'm thinking about, like, I've had friends, usually jokingly but sometimes serious, like, hey, motivate me in 5 minutes, and I'm like, that's just not how it works.
Not how it works.
Like I'm not there. And I've like, and people have been like, no, like, do it. I'm like, you know, it's like I get it. Like, you're just like, I'm not in the show. I'm not performing. Like, it's almost like Dance Monkey Dance. Like,
it totally is that vibe.
Like, I think the better part is, like, tell me more about what you do and, like, how do you go about, you know, how you do it, like, rather than like, let's do this right now. Let's tell a joke.
I'll sit and talk shop all day.
Right,
I love it, but I just don't want to tell you a joke off stage.
Different.
I just don't want to tell you.
Folks, it would be so. I'm
the
looking at all of
environment.
you who are working with Raegan. Stop doing that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The environment is for sure everything.
Yeah.
You also brought up traveling and doing all that. How the hell do you manage that and being able to play shows and go out, you know, across the state?
I'm a really
and
bad
still-
paralegal.
One job you're good at, the other one just exists. Yeah. Fair enough.
Honestly, you just kind of learn to not sleep a lot. And I mean, it's like about priorities. Like, you really do have to, it's like every year I try to set 1 or 2 comedy goals.
Okay.
And this was the year my goal kind of shifted, and because I was like trying to write for time and it was just not going well. And I think this year what I want to do, I've realized that when I'm traveling, I'm writing more than I'm ever writing when I'm going places. So instead of trying to force myself to be like, this year you're going to write 30 new minutes, I'm just going to say you're going to perform in 5 states you haven't performed and try to do that. Because when the traveling, you naturally write. But it is tough. I think the nice thing about comedy, it's usually Friday, Saturday nights. But you do get like a random Wednesday, Thursday show. I've done a show on every night of the week. I mean, it could be any night. But I think it's just a bit when we were in the pandemic, actually, and we were kind of coming out of it, comedy came back pretty quickly.
Right.
Comedy sucked at that time because they were social distancing and masks, which is the last thing you want.
And again, environment is everything.
Environment is everything. And people like thought if they had a mask on they didn't have to laugh. And it was just it was almost like doing a Zoom show in person. It was the worst feeling in the world. Obviously we needed the masks and everything, but it sucked. But that I was working remote, so that's when I really started to like put the mileage in, and then I just didn't stop, and I'm still not stopping. I've been putting a lot of money into my car. A lot of miles into my car.
When you say you write a lot when you travel, is it because you have time to do it when you're traveling, or because you're observing a lot of things that are funny? Like, or is it maybe a kind of both?
I think it's like that's when I have the most time to listen to specials. So I'll go back and listen to, I always try like on a long trip to listen to an old special and then a new special that I don't want to listen to. To kind of like make myself, one, like know the industry better. But also two, like I tend to listen to people that I want to be like. I don't always tend to listen to people that I actually have a lot in common with.
Right.
So it's like I don't know. And I feel like
that's great.
Yeah, I want to be more. more and yeah, whatever. So I'm trying to push myself. A lot of like alternative comedians too who are doing like indie shit and making their own albums. That's not like the one you like immediately want to go jump and listen to.
Right.
But those are the people who are starting to headline clubs, who are doing the things that I want to be doing in 5 years now. So I should be looking at them and listening to them and learning more about like how they came up.
Right.
Yeah.
So I try to do one new one, and then I go back to an
That's
old
great.
one as well.
Do you have any folks like in your network that are like famous comedians or folks that we like some that you connected with maybe in the past or met at a show that we'd be like, wow, I know that person or I've seen that person before?
Well, Jackie Cation, I was gonna say, I watched her Comedy Central special when I was like little.
Yeah,
her like Comedy Central present.
That's one. I didn't know her. But
And I don't like know them, but I've gotten to work with some cool people.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys know Kyle Kinane. I've opened for Kyle
the
a couple
voice
of
of
times.
the voice of Comedy Central.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Oh, that's sweet. That's
I
really
don't
cool.
like know him as like
Yeah.
we're friendly and he's been very supportive, which is great.
That's great.
But yeah, he was one of my kind of like, I was first starting and I remember somebody like, have you listened to Kyle Kinane? And I was like, no. And I started listening to all of his specials in like my first. He's kind of like a comedian's comedian. I mean, even before I did comedy, I listened to comedy a lot, but for some reason he wasn't on my radar.
Yeah.
And then like later that year, I got to open for him for the first time, which
That's
was
awesome.
wild. Yeah.
That's really cool.
It was very
That's
crazy.
really cool.
Actually, his YouTube special, Trampoline in a Ditch. I don't know if
Okay, I haven't seen.
you
Yeah.
haven't. Oh, I'm the woman who brings him on stage.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
That's awesome.
I did
video watch. Yeah.
I did a comedy competition in Madison and I placed top 5, and they gave me that as like kind of a. I think that was the idea. It was like I didn't even place,
Yeah.
but they're like, you got pretty far, kid, and so they
Go
gave me
get him,
that
champ.
weekend.
Yeah.
And then it wound up on that weekend that he was recording his special. It was total randomness.
Oh, that's funny.
I was a very terrible comedian at that point. But then I got to open for him again at Turner Hall, and then I just went out and I did High Plains, and he put me on his Kyle Kinane and Friends show there. So he's,
awesome.
Like,
Awesome.
yeah, he's been rad. And when I was there, I met Shane Torres, who I love. And that's about the extent of my big names.
Yeah, no, that's cool. That's
Yeah,
cool.
it's just cool because when they come, it is always fun too in Milwaukee. I want to do just a quick plug too for these venues. Is we have 2 clubs that are amazing. We have the Improv, which is what you'd call a corporate club,
Yeah.
and it's a chain, and they get insane acts
Yeah.
from all over. And the people who run that club are amazing. They make the locals feel super included, and they're just good people. And we've gotten to meet some cool people just from like being around that environment.
Right.
And then we also have the independent club here in town called the Laughing Tap, which is in Walker's Point.
Yep.
And they bring in like every kind of array of comedian you could ever desire. I mean,
Awesome.
we have like, it's cool to have comedy on 2 levels in the same city of like that kind of corporate, like these are people who are doing this. I mean,
These are the names you've seen on TV kind of thing, or you've seen them on late night or whatever.
and you've definitely seen people at the Tap on late night as well, but it's just kind of like it's like a difference of like who's doing a corporate route right now, because like you have to kind of like get in these clubs,
Yeah.
and then who's working at like kind of like the indie scene, and some of them have done the corporate and they're trying to do the indie thing just because they like it more or whatever.
Right.
I mean, that's the comedy industry makes 0 sense to me, honestly. I can't fully wrap my brain around it, but it's like cool in Milwaukee to have 2 awesome venues like that.
Yeah,
It's
for
special.
sure.
Yeah.
We could talk comedy all day.
We could. Obviously,
feel
I was
Love
like,
comedy, yeah.
We
you know, we're
definitely
out
could.
of time.
Oh, you're
But
good.
we're good on time. Don't worry about it. We got plenty of computer space. No. So, but if people do want to kind of get in touch with you and figure out kind of, where you're going to be at.
Oh, yeah.
Find the nearest bar and you can meet up.
Yeah, we'll be at the Newport.
The Newport. Yeah, I'll be at the Newport.
Yeah. No, if they want to actually get in touch with your comedy, where's a good place to do this at?
Best place is on my Instagram.
Okay.
It's Raegan, Raegan _Niemela, Niemela. I have the worst name for comedy.
Yeah, that's terrific. We will have that in the description.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then I try to post my dates every month. I'm not great about it because I hate social media. But and Canva, I don't know. I felt like so technologically in tune like 5 years ago, and now I feel like a fucking old lady.
It's all finished.
Do I have to hire a Gen Z kid to do my monthly list?
Now, do you have a MySpace top 8 or what's your story there?
I still DM Tom. He's not gotten back to me.
Oh my God.
He's still just hanging out behind that desk, just turned around.
Man.
Thumbs up.
What an iconic photo that is. What a guy. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. We will make sure that people go and follow you there and check that out as well. Also, Bremen Cafe every Monday.
Every Monday, Bremen Cafe. The open mic is called Monday Mass, 7:30 start, and 7:30 sign up, 8:00 start. You'll hear the church bells ringing, which is it's a bar next door to a church. That's what we call it.
That's a
Monday Mass.
built-in bell. You're good to
There you
pretty
go.
great. Yeah.
And if you want to take your stab at doing comedy, do it there.
Yes.
Or
Absolutely.
maybe.
Absolutely, and let me know if it's your first time because we'll roast you immediately after.
We'll make your life a living hell then. It'll be great.
No,
I'm not gonna lie. When we
know.
were talking about it initially, you were like, "Yeah, like everybody gets like a 5-minute spot or a 10-minute spot or whatever," and I was like,
Yeah.
It's like 5 minutes. That's it. Like,
4 or 5 minutes.
Oh
spots.
yeah. I was like, it is shockingly small to what I thought,
Yeah.
and then I was like, oh, that makes actually a lot of sense. To like,
yes,
be
you always
good
think you
at-
have more time than you really do.
Always,
I was just re-listening to a set on my way over here, and I was like, that was for sure 5 minutes. And then I looked at the timer of my audio recording, and it was barely 3. I was like, what?
Oh wow.
yeah.
Wow, isn't it? Yeah,
it was very wild. Yeah.
So make sure you go check out 3 minutes of Raegan Niemela. Follow her on Instagram as well, and then be on the lookout for her as well. If you're listening to this podcast for the first time, thank you, welcome, hello,
or for the 49th time,
or the 49th.
Yes.
Yeah.
Make sure you we are available everywhere that you can get podcasts, all over the place. We're just all over them.
We're literally everywhere. Yeah.
So make sure you follow us as well. We're also on Instagram, we're on Twitter, we are on Facebook and TikTok
yes.
and YouTube.
Yes.
So Hustling Sideways everywhere. If you want to be on the show, you can do that as well. Send us an email. I was going to say drop us a line again.
You can say that. That sounds kind of cool. Yeah.
Get in touch with us somehow. But we have an email. It's hustlingsideways@gmail.com. And you too could be on this very podcast.
Ooh.
And there you go. Jim, take us out of here.
Keep on hustling.
We'll see you next time.